right, we are going to get into the next section, section 7.6. We're going to continue with factoring. The first thing we're going to do, the first couple problems, are going to be combining section 7.4 and 7.5. So our first thing that we are going to do, okay, when we are factoring, you always check and see if there is a GCF, a greatest common factor. All right, so when we are looking in this first example, okay, we see that in our coefficients, we can pull out a 3. And in our variables here, we can pull out an x. Okay, remember the greatest common factor is the largest thing that we can pull out of all three of those. Okay, so if we take 3 divided by 3, just gives us 1, and we don't really need to write that there because x cubed divided by x, we're left with x squared. 15 divided by 3, we get 5. X squared, take away an x, we're left with 1x. And then negative 18 divided by 3 gives us a negative 6, and then our x's cancel. Now that we have factored out that GCF, we can take this part right here that's in parentheses and factor that. Remember, we use our x method. We are multiplying to the negative 6 and then adding to our 5. If we're multiplying to a negative, that means we have a negative and a positive. And then we're adding to a positive, so that means that we have more positives than we do negatives. So our factors here are going to be 6 and negative 1. So we get 3x. Remember, we have to pull that down, okay? Don't forget that's there. We pulled that out, but we have to bring it down. And then we get x plus 6 times the quantity of x minus 1. All right, this is our fully factored form. So always check for your GCF first. That has to be the first thing that you do. All right, so let's look at this next example. When we look at 5, 35, and 50, we can pull out a 5. And then we've got x squared x, and then there's no x at the very end, so all that we're going to pull out here is a 5. So we have 5 divided by 5 just gives us 1, so we're left with just that x squared minus 7x plus 10. And then we can do our x method again. We are multiplying to this 10 and then adding to that negative 7. If we're multiplying to a positive but adding to a negative, that means we have both negatives here. So we get negative 5 and negative 2. So we get 5 times the quantity of x minus 5 times the quantity of x minus 2. And again, that is our fully factored form. All right, our next example, if we look at 6, 30, and 24, all of those we can take a 6 out of. Okay, so our greatest common factor is 6. And then if we look, we've got x cubed, x squared, and x, so we can also take an x out of there. 6x cubed divided by 6x, we're left with x squared. 30x squared divided by 6x, we are left with 5x. And then 24x divided by 6x, we are left with just a 4 because those x's cancel out. So again, we look at what's inside those parentheses. We're going to multiply to a 4 and then add to a 5. All right, we're multiplying to a positive and adding to a positive. Our terms are both going to be positive, so we've got 4 and 1. So we bring along that 6x, and then we have the quantity of x plus 4 times the quantity of x minus 1, plus 1. Now, I will say the most common error that I see is that you will go through and factor and get this part correct, but you will forget to bring down that 6x. Always pull out the greatest common factor first, and then after you do that, make sure that you bring it down with you for your final answer. All right? All right. Now, what we've been doing each time, when we look, right here, we've just had x squared every time. Okay, that's what we have practiced with. Each time, we have just had x squared that we were factoring. When we look at this next example, we can see that we've got a 10 out front. Okay, this is our A value. This is A, B, and C. Our A value is 10, and there's no greatest common factor here. There's nothing that I can pull out of all of these. All right, so we are going to do something called the slip and slide method. So I'm going to slip this back. I'm going to multiply it. So I get x squared plus 17x plus 30. And now this looks exactly like what we've done before. Okay, we've got that x squared again. And from here, we can use our x method. We are multiplying to that 30 and adding to 17. All right, we're multiplying to a positive, adding to a positive. The two factors are going to be 15 and 2. So we have x plus 15 in one set of parentheses, and then x plus 2. Okay, but here's the thing. From here, this A value right here, 10, we need to put that underneath these two. Okay, this A value comes down here and is put underneath. And then we simplify. So we get x plus 3 over 2. Okay, 15 over 10 simplifies to 3 over 2. And then x plus 1/5. Okay, we slipped, and now we are going to slide. All right, this bottom part slides up in front of this x. So we end up with 2x plus 3, and then 5x plus 1, and then it is fully factored. And of course, check your answer. Okay, so 2x times 5x gives us 10x squared. Okay, we are checking our answer. 2x times 1 gives us 2x. 3 times 5x gives us 15x. 3 times 1 gives us 3. When we combine our like terms, we get exactly what we started with in the beginning. Okay, again, this is called the slip and slide method. All right, so we're going to do several more. Okay, I know it looks a little funny, but we're going to do several more so you'll get the hang of it. All right, so again, we've got A, B, and C here. So we are going to slip A to the back. Okay, we're going to multiply it. So we get x squared plus x minus 42. And now we are going to do our x method. We're multiplying to negative 42 and then adding. Don't forget, there's an actual 1 in front of there, so we're adding to a 1. If we look at our factors, we want to look at factors that are just 1 away from each other. Okay, we've got a negative and a positive. So we're looking at factors that are 1 away from each other. And our factors of 42 are going to be 7 and 6. And remember, one of them has to be a negative, and that's going to be your smaller number since we're adding to a positive. So we end up with x plus 7 and x minus 6. But don't forget, we have to take this A value and put it underneath. All right, for this first one, that doesn't simplify at all. But in the second set of parentheses, we get x minus 3. So then we slide that 2 back up front. So we get the quantity of 2x plus 7 times quantity of x minus 3. And again, of course, we want to check this answer, especially these first several times while we're getting the hang of it. So 2x times x gives us 2x squared. 2x times a negative 3 gives us negative 6x. 7 times x gives us a positive 7x. And then 7 times negative 3 gives us negative 21. Combine your like terms, and we end up with exactly what we started with. All right, so we do have 4 more examples that we're going to do. We're going to do those in the second video. All right, so make sure that you have all of this down.